Welcome back to another episode here on the Hard Hustle Podcast. Our next guest, she started with a clipboard on the soccer field. Now she leads 5 branches, hundreds of staff, and a mission that never clocks out. Before we get started, you started part-time thinking this may be a stepping stone. When did you actually realize it was your calling, Kristen?
Pretty early on, so probably within a year of me starting, I went from a part-time role to a full-time role, and I was pretty bought in at that time, and knew this is probably something I wanted to do in the long term. So.
What do you remember most about them early days on the field? Clipboard in hand, running sports, a lot of energy.
Yeah. I really was just excited to see the families and kind of see how they interacted together, how the kids were so excited to be out there and having fun and living a healthy lifestyle, learning character values. It really warmed my heart to see that we could have that impact on families. And think about it when we were kids, right? We remember our youth sports days, even now as adults. So to feel like I was making those core memories on a weekly basis was really great. And then also like recruiting volunteer coaches and telling parents how important it is for them to give back to their community and how the kids want them to be part of their teams and more involved was really rewarding too.
I love it. And then you go from coaching kids to coaching leaders. How was that mission like? When you think about mindset shift, is it the same? Are you feel like you're still doing it just at a higher level? How has it really stayed the same, if any?
No, I definitely don't think it's the same. I think there's a lot of transferable skills, but your mindset definitely has to shift. And it's very different when you have volunteers working for you versus when you have staff working for you trying to make moves. A volunteer isn't looking to move up the corporate ladder, right? But your staff sometimes are. Your staff are looking for raises, they're looking for more opportunities, they're looking for holes to fill in their schedules. And so yes, your mind shift definitely has to change.
So you go from that young girl on the field to now you're leading multiple, right? You're head over multiple. Well, how does that feel like to you? Like, what was that moment, I guess, doing all this, where maybe in the community that's kind of really stayed with you when you think about it all?
So I think it was my first executive director role. That's when you operate and own your own branch of the YMCA. And I was working at the South Orlando Y. It was my first opportunity to serve as an executive director. And it was what we kind of call one of those fragile or at-risk communities. They don't have the same resources that some of our more affluent communities have. That's where I really learned about kind of the type of leader I wanted to be and the impact I and my team can have on a community. I'll never forget, I think it was 2017, and Hurricane Irma had come through, and
Oh
that
yeah.
community was really devastated in regards to they didn't have power for almost 2 weeks. I think it was about 10 days that they had lost power. And the Y was closed. We didn't have power either, but I remember the first day we were still at the Y, just hanging out front, telling people, sorry, we're closed. These locations are open. This is where you can go to. And it became very clear and evident that the community was very panicked because they didn't have power and they were afraid that they were going to lose all their food. And so they kept asking, do you know where we can find ice? Do you know where we can find ice? And I'm like, no, I don't know where you can find ice. And it was the second day, and I was like, man, we got to do something. Like, they can't lose their food. Some of them were concerned about some medications. And I remember just looking at my staff and I was like, we can't just sit here and tell people like we're not open, go to this. I was like, we got to find ice.
Find something.
And so we reached out to some community partners, some restaurants, and literally handed out 3,000 pounds of ice within 24 hours, within 2 days. And the community
Wow.
just came in droves and waited, and we put ice in their cars. And the amount of appreciation that the community had for us, it was so humbling. I remember I was brought to tears one day because I had a family that came back and said thank you so much and was trying to give me their last $20, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the least we can do.
Yeah.
It was probably then that I realized, wow, like, no one told me to go get ice, right? No, right? Like, I was like, oh man, like we can really change a community and really make an impact that people will never forget. And that's when the light bulb switched for me, and I was like, wow, we could really do some amazing things together. And the team was just as rewarded and so excited about it as well. I think we were featured in a magazine. I actually got an award through work because of it. And so no one told you what to do, but that's what true leaders do. You find a need in the community and you make it happen.
I love that. And as you mentioned, it was a time where community had to come together, and you were that leader in the community. The why, whatever community is in, that's that leader in the community. And you see it in our low income areas, we see it in the high income areas, both being from Orlando. The one in Pine Hills is very different than Dr. Phillips,
Right.
right? But they still very community driven, and they provide
Absolutely.
to the community what is needed.
Hmm.
So I love that. I love that that's what you're able to get out of that, right? Just to think quick on your feet, but also how cool it was that you can just make a couple phone calls.
Yeah.
Why connections and networks, and that it all matters because, like you said, in 24 hours, I made a couple of calls,
Hmm.
and we were able to. What is it? You said 3,000 pounds of ice.
1,000 pounds of ice. Hmm.
That's a lot of ice.
Yeah.
That's a lot of ice.
In Florida in September when it could melt. So I mean, not only we
Exactly.
needed the ice, but we needed the coolers to keep it in, and so it was
That was a lot.
really. And
Yeah.
then how do we communicate? Right, the people on power, so they don't have internet, they can't figure out where to go get it. Right, so we literally had to
Yeah.
go and post like loose leaf paper signs on things to tell people where to come to get ice. So yeah,
I love it.
was-
And while it may sound a little crazy at that time, I'm pretty sure it was fun when you go back and think about it. Like, man, look what we were able to do.
yeah. I mean,
Something
that
as
was
small
8
as
years
ice.
ago, and I still remember it as clear as
Yeah.
day too.
Something as small as ice truly makes a difference. There's something scarce about being part of people's memories across generations, and I'm pretty sure you have now adults that talk about that bringing their kids, but talk about their memories and the why, because we all have this why memory. You did mention just one to me now, but is there another one that still gives you goosebumps when you think about that story?
Another story that I can think about, you know, what's great about the work that I do is honestly, I get to impact lives every single day. And while it might not be me, it's my staff team. And so another really great memory I had was at the same Y. It was in the South Orlando community. And we had a board member that came to me and said, hey, I have this mom that I know that I'm connected to, and her son has autism, and he loves basketball, and she doesn't know where to go to sign up for basketball because he doesn't really fit into like your recreational basketball league. The whistles and the noise and the cheering, it's just a little too much. Do you know of an organization that maybe offers basketball for kids with special needs? And I was like, no, I don't. But the Y is the founder of basketball. We've actually created it. And I just thought, like, man, like, what a need for the community, right? That can't be the only child. And so I remember looking at my sports director at the time and I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. I would love to start a basketball league for children on the spectrum or with autism-related disabilities. I have no idea what that'll look like. I don't know what that means, but let's figure it out together. And he kind of looked at me like, Kristen, I don't know anything about this. And I said, we'll figure it out. So we reached out to CARD. They actually had a great program. They trained us. And that YMCA is right next to a high school, and we're flooded with teens after school every day. And what we realized is with the league that we needed to do, have buddy system with the kids. And so the teens actually volunteered their time to give back and work with this basketball league
So
on
cool.
Sundays. And the families were just overjoyed because their kids got to play in a way that they never thought would be possible. We actually did it during off hours so we could lock the building down so we wouldn't have any runners. We were able to control the noise and the environment completely. And these teens were just so humbled by the experience that they were able to give back to their community and give to these kids. So that was probably another really great memory that I
Yeah, that is a
had
good
we
one.
were able to impact families and teens, multi-generation. So little kids, parents, grandparents got to cheer on their kids, and then teens as well, which is really cool.
That's so cool, and I love that you thought outside the box for them, right? Because I just spoke to another nonprofit earlier today. It was actually Lighthouse Louisiana, and they deal with those that are blind mostly, right? But those same ones that are blind, they're working in a manufacturing company, doing exactly what others thought they never were able to do, working high power machines, and just to think about back in the days, it wasn't possible for them to do these things. But there's leaders like yourself, like, no, let's make it possible. Like, we got to figure it out, right? We're going to figure it out. That is such a good leader, which is now why going from leading one, you're leading 5. This is amazing.
Yeah,
I love this.
So I lead 5 Ys right now, and oh my gosh, 3 counties actually. Now that I think about it, and yeah, it's super rewarding work. And now the passion for me is how do I teach other leaders to make impacts in their community, and so that's what I'm super passionate about now.
The last time we spoke, you joked about using too much AI. What's your actual guilty pleasure tool, and how is it actually changing your work? Is it as simple as ChatGPT, or are you getting down with something different?
No, I definitely use ChatGPT quite a bit now, but as I'm learning how to use it more and more, I think there's even more we can do with it in regards to our member experience here in the YMCA. How are we using ChatGPT to help make our websites better, or answer members' questions, or personalize their member experience when they join the Y? I think that's all things that we're just scratching the surface on that can be really great, which then frees us up, the staff, to really have more of those human connections with the members that are coming in or the program participants. And so how do we automate some of that stuff based on what people's interests are, or when they join the Y, or maybe their demographic, to really get people connected. What's really unique about the Y is, yeah, we're a fitness center, but we're so much more than that. A lot of your typical fitness centers, right, they want your money. They don't necessarily want you showing up to their facility every day. The Y wants everyone to show up every day. And so we're
Correct.
constantly trying to figure out how do we get them to come in more and more often and build those genuine connections.
It's you mentioned ChatGPT. Are you at the point yet? I don't know if you figured this out, but I just hired an assistant, so we have workspace. So I've created the brand's voice. So even if she's doing any documentations or anything like that, it's always in that voice. Have you been able to do that, the back engine?
Yeah, so I haven't done it personally, but I've used it so much now that it does know my voice, right? It's
Love
funny
it.
that you said this because I pay for the upgrade, and my husband wanted, he's like, hey, can I have your login for your chat? I said, absolutely. You can. My chat knows me and knows how I
Yes.
think now.
Yes.
So, like,
Yes. Don't mess it up.
you
Yeah.
can't be
Don't
in
mess
there
it up.
messing it up, so get your own. And if
That is
we're
funny.
supposed
No,
to
I
go to the world one day, I make sure I tell it please and thank you, and I use
Yeah.
my manners, so I'm not going to be on its list when it gets upset one day.
That is so funny because I'm like that too. It's at a point where sometimes I'm just laughing at how it responds to me, right? Because I'll add humor sometimes and just talk. I talk and I type into it, but I'll add like I'm just talking to a normal person, and sometimes they give me back like it's a friend. I
Yeah.
just die laughing like, how did it know? You know, like it's really great. But yeah, if that workspace, man, like you mentioned, a lot of people, it's truly a tool, you know. And I think when I mean, AI has really been around for a long time, but the way that it has been around, people have been very scared that it's a replacement. And I'm like anybody other leader, there's no way that it could replace human connection. Like
Absolutely.
we need that, right? We need this right here, these conversations. And even in person is so much better. Like this is great, but in person is always so much better when you can talk to that live person. But it truly does help us out. We get more creative, as you mentioned, outside the box thinking of how can I better what we already good at. Sometimes it could take us months, it could take us weeks to have that one idea, but we type it in, it gives you 5 great ideas and how to do it.
Yeah.
Like it can't get any easier than that. I love it.
And trying to teach the team, too, my team, to not be afraid of it. It is a tool. It's so helpful, and it frees you up to do so much more, right? So
That you love to do.
yeah, so think smarter, not harder.
Come on now. Tech is great, but this is still hard work. How do you keep the human connections, as we mentioned, front and center while still innovating?
Like with my staff team, like how?
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell my team all the time. One, you have to be a role model for that, right? And so building genuine relationships with your team, I think it goes a long way. It builds trust, it builds loyalty. That way when you have to have those hard conversations or those brainstorming ideas, people feel that they can be vulnerable and safe in order to do those types of things. So I work really hard on having relationships with my team, both in work and out of work, and everyone communicates a little differently. Like I have 2 executive directors. One is a very extrovert, loves to talk on the phone, wants to tell me her whole life. The other one, not so much. And so I have to change my communication styles to meet them where they are to build those genuine relationships.
You've seen people take pay cuts to be in this nonprofit space. What do you think really pulls people in? I mean, and I've heard stories such as judges. I mean, I've spoken to some judges or attorneys that leave these high-paying jobs to go into the nonprofit, and they will always give the response, "I wish I would have done this sooner. I'm so happy."
Yeah.
What do you think is really pulling these people in?
Yeah, that's interesting. We have quite a few staff recently in our association leadership that have come from the for-profit world, and learn those skills that they have in the for-profit world. And we're just missing something else in their life, whether they wanted to give back to their community or wanted a slower pace of life. Because that's another thing. A lot of people think nonprofit is, it's slow paced or.
Yeah.
But
Not
then,
at all.
but then when they get in and they realize, wow, the impact that they make and the change that they make, and they're not just, fluffing the pockets of your stakeholders, but really making an impact in their community, that's when they really get bought in and they feel like I have purpose beyond just making a paycheck.
I remember you mentioned the Kool-Aid effect. What was it about the Y's mission that hooks people in and never lets go?
So the Y's mission is to improve lives of all. It's not just Christians, it's not just men, it's not just old people or younger people. It's everyone. And so a lot of people don't realize that, and how we go about in doing that. Everyone has a Y story, whether they're a senior citizen and they remember when they were a kid that they were a shark or minnow and learned how to swim at the Y, or they remember coming to summer camp at the Y as a kid, or they remember bringing their parent in to have socialization as a Y so that they could feel connected to their community. So no matter where I go, whenever I wear a Y shirt, it seems like, oh, the Y. It's one of the most recognized brands in the world, and everyone has some sort of Y story. There's 6 degrees of separation in the Y world. There's maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's funny. I going back to those learn how to swim. We wanted to teach my daughter to go swimming. The first place we looked at, the Y. That's exactly where we took her, is the Y. So yeah, it's true. Have in the experience in all the years that you've actually been doing this with the Y, have you seen one of our young leaders go into the Y? This youth loving what you guys are doing, but then also walking out as a leader and also back into the community. Have you seen those stories?
Yeah, so the gentleman I spoke of earlier, who I said, hey, let's do a autism-related disability basketball
Yeah,
league. He's a great example. He actually grew up in that Y, sneaking in as a teenager. And then they're like, hey, man, you keep sneaking in here. How about you volunteer and give back, and then you don't have to sneak in anymore. We'll just allow you in. And so he started volunteering and getting connected to the Y. Then he got his first job at the Y. Anyway, now he's a grown adult, has a family of his own. He's now speaking in local middle schools about the impact the Y has had on him. He's just really grown with the Y, and is definitely a future leader. And I've been working with him for about 8 years now personally, and just to see the growth in those 8 years, he was able to fly globally for the first time through the Y. He was part of a global initiative program. And so just to see how the Y has opened his eyes and how he can really make an impact on his community, and how when he was a kid, someone really took a chance on him, and now he gets to do that for other kids is really cool.
That's what I love about pouring into our youth. Like, right, it's that trickle effect. Whether you see it now, or maybe sometimes you will never even see it, but knowing that you've dropped that seed there and it's up to others to continue to water it, it is such a cool thing, which is why I love to work with the youth a lot, because I feel, especially like now, my niece just turned 18 years old and going on to the world. I'm like, oh my God, trying to pour as much wisdom as I can as she grows up as well for my own daughter, because while we see it now, they remember these conversations. I remember great conversations of people that were there for me, that didn't need to be there, that weren't my family, that were maybe teachers, people, at work, that were 10, 15 years older than me. I remember those conversations. I was hard-headed at that moment and probably didn't listen to them, but they come back, right? They come back to you. So it is so cool that he's been able to kind of see that full circle.
And you never know what's going to strike a chord with someone, right? Or what they're going to remember, the impact. And I tell my team all the time, like, we might not save everyone's life, but that doesn't mean we're not going to try. And so, you just do what you can, and those little nuggets will come out maybe in the future or whatever the case may be.
Do you guys, any of your Ys over by College Park or Edgewater?
We do have a Y over there. It's the Leonard Marjorie Williams Family YMCA, but that is not one of my Ys. But it is part of Central Florida, so it has a different vice president that oversees that Y.
That's my old high school, so I'm the president of that foundation. So I was trying to figure out how do we partner up. I think it would be cool to bring some of the kids at Edgewater.
Well, I know
and
people,
make it happen.
so we can still partner. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I love it, man. I've taken over that foundation, and it's a 30-year-old foundation. But I think about all the youth because right now, the scholarships, we just provided 15 scholarships this year, some that we funded ourselves and then some that the community funded. But we always think, to me, I'm always a big believer, how do we get our youth to just also be more in the nonprofit space? That's something I mentioned at school. Are we telling our kids that there's actually a career in nonprofits? Because There is, but who's going to college and say, I'm taking nonprofit courses? But if we can do something where people can see the why and the things behind it, I believe that there's so many avenues that bring peace and happiness to people's lives where you don't have to go and get spend $100,000 on a degree when you can go into a nonprofit, use your talents, God-given talents, because it's always needed. And I always say, whatever you love in the world, Google a nonprofit. There's probably one out there that's doing exactly what you love to do. You could volunteer your time. Hell, maybe make it a job. Who knows?
That's a great call out. I went to school for sport management. I knew I wanted to work in amateur athletics. I really love the character building. I love that the product of sports itself isn't something tangible, but it's more of a feeling or an emotion. That's what I was really drawn to and why I really wanted to get in sport management. I had no idea about not-for-profit work at all. I remember that one of the classes was about like park and rec and some facilities, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, like fitness center management, but I didn't really understand the whole not-for-profit work. But once I got into the why in sports and I realized, oh man, I could do all this and make a difference in my community, it was a no-brainer, and it was a happy accident, but I can't imagine doing anything else. I can't imagine working for any other organization. I truly get to change lives on a daily basis, whether it's through myself or through others. And I don't think there's many organizations that can say that. I mean, even just today, we did like a senior coffee chat at the downtown Orlando Y. And I just sat there and had coffee with seniors for an hour and just chit-chatted. And they got to tell me stories about their families and what brought them to Orlando and about their husbands that have passed and how much they love them. And it's just such rewarding work that they get to share these stories. Who knows if they have anyone even at home to talk to or even have that social connection. So those are just some of the things I get to do on a daily basis, which is really cool.
If the Heart and Hustle podcast has ever sparked any idea or made you think differently, do us a favor. Make sure to guys share this, post it on LinkedIn, or even text that nonprofit friend that you just have. Whatever works, this is what keeps the conversation going and allows us to just grow this community together. Seriously, we appreciate you. I used to work for the airline industry some years back, and obviously they will call in, all right, our elderly. And I'll stay on the phone with them for an hour at times, just walking them through the site. But you know what? It was always a pleasure to have them on the phone. Sometimes you're husband and wife bickering, but just out of love, right? Like it was just, like you mentioned, sometimes they just need someone to talk to. So I never, as long as they're very respectful to me, I will stay on the hour with them and just laugh because you're right. You're probably the only person that we're able to talk to today. And then at the end, they were just so thankful for it, that someone gave them the time, that someone sees them. Because it does get to that point where sometimes as elders, we forget about them, right? But they had a life at one point too. They decided to raise kids, and now they may be like, okay, what's next? And now no one's coming back to talk to them. I have another wise story, and it was I used to run the subway in Dr. Phillips, like Olympia. You know Olympia High School? So I ran that subway, and obviously I think I catered for the Dr. Phillips one, the one on Dr. Phillips, and I ended up meeting a lady. I don't know if she's still there, but Marquita, and she showed me what's kind of going on the back end, right? Like, so I remember speaking to the youth one day. They had hey, can you speak to the youth? And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that was a thing. I think one day I helped them put lunch boxes together for some of the youth, Again, I didn't grow up in the Ys, so I didn't know what was really going on. But seeing, first of all, how massive this Y was, how that's a huge YMCA.
We call those the Taj Mahals.
Oh my God, I can tell why. But it was just cool to really see what's happening at some of these YMCAs. And I don't know that people actually see that, but it's happening in a lot of the nonprofits, which is kind of goes back to, I hope that our young leaders are seeing and watching that when someone gets in the nonprofit space, they're there for a long time, and they will always tell you how happy they are, right?
And with not-for-profit too, you have to be adaptable and flexible, right? The needs of your community are ever evolving and changing, and we just can't keep doing the same thing, year after year. Another great example is right now I office out of the downtown Orlando Y. Howard Middle School is around the corner from us. And the principal reached out to us and said, hey, we have this huge need for after-school programming for our middle school students. And I said, middle school students? First of all, your kids get out at like 4:20. That's like late in the day. They're middle school. They could be home alone. Like they're not at that age where like you can't leave them home. He's like, well, we're a 100% magnet school. We provide no bus transportation, so all these families drive their kids here, and they're not done with work yet, so they need aftercare before they can come pick them up. Our current aftercare program is at capacity. We have a huge wait list. And I said, wow, well, the Y is literally zero point 0.4 miles away. What we can do
Yeah.
is send a staff over every day after school and walk the kids to the Y, and we'll create an after school program here on site. And so it started as just like a silly idea, has turned and evolved. We've got over 60 kids registered for this program. We call it Howard After Hours. But what's most rewarding is the kids love to be here. They feel safe. They feel like they could be their authentic selves. Howard is an art school, and so the kids are really passionate about art. So all the curriculum we have is kind of around that art and where they could see their passion. And so that's been a really great, rewarding experience. But if the principal had never reached out, we would have never known that was a community need. And so it literally just developed out of thin air overnight to help meet the needs of our community.
I like that. I like that. You know, there's just so many different cool things. I'm in Deltona, I mentioned. And I don't know if this is every library because I don't go to libraries like that. But now that I have a young child, I end up at libraries often, checking out books. But we found out, like, they have like a little aquarium side next to it, real small. But they also sell, what are they called? Man, the water jug, like water containers you put outside, water barrels, the rain barrels. Rain barrels.
Okay.
And so they sell them, and that's just how they make money. And I thought I was talking to another leader, and I was telling her about the rain barrel X, Y, Z. She's like, "Oh wow!" I said, "Yeah, I only paid $60, like completely done everything." And she's like, "Wow!" I said, "Actually, when I think about it, that's a good fundraising idea. Like, you just don't know what you don't know until someone tells you. You're like, oh wow, why didn't I think of that?" Right? So that's why I love these conversations, because even what you're saying, like, sometimes community partnership is right next door.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, then you're not going to do anything about it. That goes back to the communication. That goes back to showing up in those places, right? That is our audience. How can we show up a little bit more and really figure out from them? So that's really cool. Whoever reached out to you to say, hey, there's a need here,
Yeah.
that's a really good leader as well. They see how the kids could really benefit. Maybe they had their own Y story. Did they have a Y story?
They were
That would've been
familiar
good
with the
to know.
Y. I think they had a Y after. That principal there came from an elementary school that I think had a Y after school program at
Oh,
it. And
got
so I
it.
think he was familiar with the Y. But another thing I tell leaders too, when you're new in your role, you're new for a good 18 months. You go everywhere you can. Be like, hi, I'm the new person, right? It doesn't have to be within the first 30, 60, 90 days. As long as you can work it and say that you're new, it really opens so many doors and so many connections. And so networking is so important as a leader. And so I highly encourage all leaders to do that too.
I love it. I love it. With families that are constantly changing, how do you think the Y reimagines the youth programs to meet them where they're at? Like, you mentioned some of the programs. Are there other programs as well that you guys have in place?
I mean, everything. I mean, the Y, we're from infants all the way up through seniors. So
Wow.
that's why it's so hard to say what the Y does, because we do so much. So, for example, we do Safe Start, which is an infant survival swim program. And babies as young as 6 months old can be one-on-one with an instructor and learn the life-saving skills that if they were to ever fall into a body of water, how to flip on their back, float, and save themselves. Not many organizations can say that. And then being in a community where we're surrounded by water in Florida, it's a really important. Drowning prevention is one of the huge pillars with the YMCA, one of the things that we're trying to combat. But then everything from like toddlers and tots at play, and then building those social interactions as young kids, to elementary school programs or clubs where they can learn STEM activities, or teen programming and teaching teens leadership tracks and what it means to be a leader in their community, and then young adults, having them have a place where they can connect all the way up through your seniors. So yes, we do everything.
So this is going to be very selfish of me, but thinking about my 4-year-old daughter, what can I do with my 4-year-old daughter? So we're doing homeschool more than anything, right? But we're doing a lot of that. But what can I do with my 4-year-old daughter other than swimming? Because we did the swimming classes.
Yeah.
So those that are listening may have young ones like myself.
Yeah. So homeschool PE, we do that at the Y. Child development, that is where children can be for up to 2 hours a day while parents are utilizing the facility. We call it child development on a purpose because it's not babysitting. We do crafts and education in there. We do social interactions and games. We do story time, music, bubbles, you name it. They could do youth sports, they could do basketball, they could do soccer as young as 4 years old, and then obviously your group swim lessons. So that's just a taste of a couple of things.
Homeschool PE.
Yeah.
I love P. That's my favorite, and I know she loves to run. We're gonna have to look into it, see if Deltona has that over there.
There's no better feeling when I see a family leaving with a small child and the child screaming because they don't want to leave.
Lord,
I'm
I
like,
can imagine
you're
that's probably my daughter.
selfish.
Yeah.
Or when the parents say, I didn't want to come here today, but my child made me come today. That's another great feeling. I'm like, score.
That'll be my daughter too. Yeah, every day before bed, she says, "Hey, tomorrow, do you think I can play with the water table and go to the park?"
Yeah.
Like it just depends. Are you gonna go to bed? But yeah, she would love that. We actually just put her in soccer. I don't know. My wife took care of it, but I'll have to look out to see what
Yeah.
the Y's actually doing in soccer.
Great.
Again, like you said, every location is a little different. You know, you didn't plan to spend 21 years. I'm pretty sure that at the blink of an eye, you're like, wait, 21 years?
Mhm.
What have those years actually taught you about purpose, patience, and even people?
Oh, patience.
Patience is everything, right? A lot of patience.
I didn't. When I started my career, it wasn't like I'm going to be a leader in the Y movement. That like wasn't my intention, right? And so, I think what I've learned about myself is I truly am a people person. I do love people. I do love making a positive influence on people. Whether that is through the community and through members or program participants. Now it's more directly with staff and growing them to see their fullest potential. I've also learned a lot about, you know, management or being a leader isn't about control. It's truly about influence and how you manage and influence others. I've also learned, and this is probably more recently, how important it is to be your authentic self and to teach other leaders to do the same. Just because I do something a certain way doesn't mean that that's how you should do it. And so, what is your authentic leadership style, and how does that fulfill you? And getting people to really understand maybe what their leadership brand is and how they want to be remembered as a leader. And so I feel like that's been kind of what I've been most passionate about most recently in my new role, because now I work more with executive leaders versus entry level leaders, and so getting them to understand the bigger picture in regards
Yeah.
to how they're really impacting other future leaders of the Y is super rewarding too.
You mentioned authentic, and one of the best things that I've had the experience with this conversation was that I can tell you've been authentic this whole time, right? Like the joke, the stories, like I love it, and it's truly have been a conversation. I don't even know if you noticed. We've already been up here 30 minutes, and I'm thinking like this is cool. We could definitely do more if we wanted to, but so I always, anytime a leader asks me how do I prepare for your podcast, I always mention that. Just bring your real self. Be authentic.
Yeah.
Like that's what we need as leaders for other leaders to see. Be yourself. It is completely okay to be yourself.
I think people think like when you become a leader, you have to be buttoned up and fit this persona or put your leadership hat on, right?
Yeah.
And well, yeah, there's a little bit of that. You really need to be yourself. People don't relate if you're not your authentic self, and so it's just. I have a quick little story. So recently we had a job posting here at the YMCA. We had 3 different postings, and we were only looking for internal candidates. And it was for an associate executive director here at the YMCA. One of my staff was up for the role, and instead of your traditional interview, it was more about sharing, providing a presentation in regards to what your vision is for that Y and that kind of thing. And the candidate came in and was like petrified, like I have to give I need to do a slide deck. And I was like, no, you do the presentation however it authentically feels good to you. If that means you have index cards to get your message across, then that's how you do it. If that means you need a slideshow and pictures, that's how you do it. Whatever feels authentic to yourself, because that's when you're going to be most successful in that interview process.
Correct.
And so he was like, oh, okay. And so, he figured it out. We practiced a little bit. And then I was on an interview panel for all 3 positions, and he was the only one that didn't do a slideshow, but his interview was the most impactful for the entire panel, and it was the one that they remembered, and it was because he was comfortable in his own skin, he was his authentic self, he was able to communicate clearly, and he didn't need some slideshow in order to do that. So that's my testament to
No, that's
your
good.
authentic self, yeah.
That is so good. I'll tell you a funny story that happened to me recently. I told you we just had this, obviously, seniors are just graduating. So the foundation was awarding some scholarships, and I was the one presenting them. So I show up in an Edgewater shirt, but like a long sleeve. Like I was dressed in Edgewater colors. I was relaxed, right? I was comfortable in who I was, but I also felt that I was right in line with our students at the school. So the principal comes up to me. He's a new school. I mean, his first year as a principal at this school. So, probably a little nervous. And he looks at me. He's like, "That's what you're wearing?" I got, a polo, if, Edgewater polo if you want to. And I kind of look down like, "Nah, man, I feel comfortable." Like, what do you don't think I look good? Just jokingly. He's like, "No, if you think you look good." I'm like, "No, I feel comfortable."
Yeah.
But sometimes, right, as you mentioned, sometimes even other leaders will try to say, "What are you doing, man? Like,
Yeah.
that's not leader." And it's like, I don't have to be in a suit and tie all the time. I know where I need to be in a suit and tie and probably dress a little bit more dapper or whatever that may look like. But let's be honest, people do business with people, not because you have a suit and tie, but because they love your vibe, they love who you are, they love what you stand for, and all these different things. So I love that you did drop that in there because it's 100% true, and you see it too much sometimes happen where people want to fake who they are, thinking it's actually bettering them.
I will say this, whenever I have like a new team member, and I take my job very seriously. I know I'm good at what I do. I definitely don't lack self-confidence, but I do not take myself too seriously. And so I think that's really important for people to realize too. And I think that's what makes people much more relatable too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to be stuffy or anything like that either. I had an affirmation. I was working with a professional coach, and we were trying to get through some barriers I was feeling regarding, networking and like how I feel a little bit more comfortable. And he's like, "You need to come up with an affirmation." And so my affirmation is, "I'm not here to perform, I'm here to be myself." Because sometimes I feel like we got to go and perform and fit this, role model or whatever. And so it's like just saying that, like, I am enough as I am is super rewarding too.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I just yesterday uploaded my journal. I created a 30-day mindset reset journal, and it's exactly that. It's affirmations, it's prompts, it's just those nuggets that allow you to think a little bit differently. And it's really for the leaders in the and not so much in just nonprofit, but leaders in general, entrepreneurs and creatives, because at times we could get lost into a role,
We don't,
right?
and I'm not anxious about things or I get nervous. I mean, right? We're human. We have
Yeah.
human emotions. We all have times where like, "Oh, did I make the right decision? Or am I going down the right path?" Or, "Oh, I got to meet this
Yep.
person. I'm super anxious about it." Right? We all have those feelings. And so
Yep.
it's how do we have that emotional intelligence to have the self-awareness that we're feeling those things, and like, what can we do to overcome them and not get in our own way?
And I've seen that speaking to so many leaders doing this in my coaching that sometimes I speak to leaders that are so in their way,
Yeah.
right,
Oh,
or so
that's
in
my
their
biggest
head.
pet peeve.
You talked about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, we all go through it
Yeah.
because there was a time where I'm like, do I quit now? Like, I'm asking my wife, like, "Babe, like, I mean, I'm kind of tapped out. Do I keep going?" And sometimes having just that good, partner as well. What she mentioned to me, she said, "Hey, God didn't bring you this far to just leave you now, did he?" Sometimes you
I
just
love
need
that.
that, right? That was a good one. And that was like, yeah, you're right. But yeah, we all make these sacrifices because sometimes we see the better in ourselves and we try to go for it. But then there's that voice. Then there's people. I've had to speak to people less because sometimes that can also kind of affect, your mood, the mindset. So I love that you went back to an affirmation because this journal was for people that I felt were in a space where they lose themselves a little bit. And affirmations and props are one of those things that I knew I wanted to experience. So I love it. I love that you went there for
Yeah,
sure.
and I think we get in our own head, and our negative self-talk is we have to be really self-aware, and even like my girlfriends or my friends, and I hear how they talk about themselves like out loud, and I'm like, wow, if you're saying this out loud, like what are you saying to yourself in your head? Like that's awful. I said, well,
Yeah.
would you talk to your best friend the way you talk to yourself? And they like look at me like, and I was just like, well, that's
I'm taking that, Christian. Listen, I'm taking that. Okay, I'm taking
yeah,
that.
you are your own best friend. Like you
Yeah.
should not be talking to yourself that way. You would never be that critical of your best friend or a loved one. Why are you so critical of yourself?
Yep. I agree, Kristen. I say that all the time, actually. Be mindful what you say to yourself,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's out loud or inside, because those things start to show up in your life, the
Absolutely.
good and the bad.
Absolutely.
So for me, when I was going through that moment, I had to tell myself it's temporary. This is part of the process. Like I literally had to talk to myself
Yeah.
because if not, my mind was just going 100 miles per hour and I would just give up. I would sit there and do nothing, you know? So I had to keep going. I know we got to wrap this up. If someone is watching but they have this job, but it's not feeding their soul, they need the job to pay the bills, but they just want their souls to be fed as well. What would you say to them right now?
Volunteer. Give back to your community. I know everyone's going to say, I don't have time, I don't have time. You make time for the things that are important to you. It doesn't mean you have to volunteer 20 hours a week. You could do 1 hour a month. You can give back with your time, your talent, or your treasure. All of those things are super important. So find a mission or a partnership that you're super passionate about, and just give back in a way that makes sense to you.
And if they want to do anything at the Y, how would they get involved in supporting the Y, their
So they
local
could
Y?
volunteer. Go to our website, ymcacf.org. You'll see all our leadership on there, and there's opportunities to volunteer on there. Walk in near Y, and ask how you can get involved.
Love it. Are you ready for the blind question now?
I guess so.
Yes, you're ready. What's one belief about leadership that's never let you down, even after 21 years?
One belief in leadership that's never let me down. People first, right? We can't do anything without the people that help us get there. So if you just have that frame of mind, your people are first, you'll get to where you need to go.
Okay, all right. That was easy for you. See, this is a good conversation. I knew this was going to be easy. What is your blind question to the next leader we have here?
What's one thing your team would roast you about?
Oh, yes. That's too funny. I'm definitely going to ask that question. Usually I know exactly what leader to that's going to give me a good response. Because talking to people, like you mentioned, there's those that are really extrovert, introvert. I know who to ask that question to, so that's a really good one. And are you on LinkedIn? Can people connect with you? Where can they find you? And also, what is the
Kristen Cole
website?
on LinkedIn. I look forward to connecting with whoever would like to, so absolutely.
Perfect. Social media? It's the Y is your? Oh no, you don't even have a Y. I forgot you have 5 different Ys now. Lord.
DTY Orlando, I think, is our downtown Orlando social media. Mine, I don't think mine's private. It's Cole_Kristen is my Instagram. But yeah, reach out.
All right, love it. Well, guys, this has been another phenomenal episode here talking about the Y. We all grew up probably seeing a Y, passing a Y, having a Y story. If you guys enjoyed this, if you guys feel like it resonated, make sure you guys do tag a friend. Make sure you guys do subscribe and like. Thank you so much again, Kristen, for being here and giving us so much
Efrain.
insight.
I really appreciate it. You have a
Yes,
great
ma'am.
weekend. All right.
You too. Guys, take care. Know Your Wrestling. Catch you later.